Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome on Sunday, 8th of August. Right. Art of working helps professionals in super boosting their career. It also helps corporate in developing their human capital. We in art of working don't consider humans to be a resource or a human force, but we consider them to be capital. And if the corporate understand the value and not the cost, then it definitely would go to the next level from good to great, right? Art of working over a period of time has been coming out with various programs, and one of them is Coffee with Founders, another one is Office Talk, and then subsequently there are many more consultation and supporting programs for working professionals. Art of working brings large number of professionals from across the globe, asks many questions, ask them to support our network, ask them to give guidance, and share the success and failure stories. Both are important, success and failure. And this time we have brought none other than Mr. Anand Tamboli. Anand Tamboli comes from Sydney, Australia, but the best thing is he is born and bred in India, and he worked through his career over a period of time, and he is an amazing leader at this stage. Anand Tamboli is an entrepreneur. He is a winning author. He's an innovator. He's a speaker. He's a futurist, and he's a highly sought after thought leader. Right? And I've been talking to Anand on this kind of program for last so many days and saying how can we collaborate and bring this amazing learning which Anand has done over a period of time. And he's worked across many industries. If to name a few, he's worked in HSBC, worked in, Bank West, then he has worked in Commonwealth, he's worked in LG, he's worked in Videocon, he's worked with Commonwealth Bank, he's founded Neuron Technologies and Services, he was a principal advisor to AI Australia. Then Anand was and he is the founder of Anand Tamboli and Company, right? But he comes from Aurangabad, right? The Government Engineering College of Aurangabad. He did his MBA from ICFI, and that is where we will start our discussion, right, Anand? Uh, we would
Sure.
like to know this great story. I mean, I could only pick up some of it, what from your profile, and say because I need to start that program. Otherwise, I can spend 1 hour only on you, right? And would have missed the major this thing that's called future of work. And today we will be talking about future of work with Anand, which is one of his specialized area of work. So Anand, let's start with your education. I mean, how you were an engineer and then you worked in India in big companies, and then you moved on to Australia, and then you are the most sought after leader. We have another program with you in few days with Professional Speakers Association. So you were the mystery speaker. Over to you, Anand.
Yes. I think the journey starts right when I was born, right? I was born in a small village, and I could barely count probably 300 small houses in that village, and that has been my initial 4 years. And since then until now, the journey has been, I would say, obviously not straightforward, but interesting in many ways. So from there, we moved on to Aurangabad, where I finished my education, my engineering, and all. And from there, actual the corporate journey or the work journey started, where I first did my teaching career, then moved to manufacturing. From manufacturing, moved to banking to a number of other things. Started my own company. Through my own company, I got to work with several different kinds of companies, and then eventually I sold it off in 2018. And when I sold it in 2018, the question struck is what next? And this question is important because where we are standing today and we are talking about future of work, this future of work or futuristic question as to what next is always something which all of us either ignore or we think too much. And none of that is helpful. But somewhere in the middle is where I think The crux lies as if you think appropriately and if you think with right tools and mindset, your progress cannot be hindered. You will always progress in a right direction, in a right way, effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely, absolutely right, Anand. I we discussed a couple of days back that the world is changing rapidly. There's more knowledge, but the knowledge has become more complex. There's a bigger population, but it also manifests into a bigger market. There's more wealth now than any time in the world, but there is more inequality that is happening. AI, when it started, now it's called narrow AI, right? And over that is those worldly changes that is happening around us, whether it is pandemic, whether it is geopolitics. Look at the way the entire supply chain from China is now disrupted and new supply chains are being created. The climate change, which is really, I mean, actually knocking our doors. You see across the world, the fires in Europe to earthquakes in Japan to tsunami to floods in India and China, right? So all these things have, more or less pushed us to new way of working. We all have been talking about this fancy word called future of work. Has it really arrived? I mean, or probably it's already there, and it is. It's just probably we are talking it too late now.
I think the issue is we see future of work as some physical thing that is about to arrive, like a courier has arrived or my parcel has arrived. It's not the case, right?
Right,
Future of work. So future is always evolving.
right.
What evolves in present leads to the future. And you mentioned about climate change and a number of other things. From a futuristic perspective, we do see those things from six different lenses. We call it the steeple effect or steeple lens. So S stands for sociological changes, T stands for technological changes, and then E, environmental, E, economic, P, political, and L, legal.
Mhm.
And all these changes, if you look at from different lenses as to what is the societal change, how different societies in different countries are evolving, what are their outlooks? First, there was a time when people were looking on a global scale, like everything was go global. These days, you will see a lot of countries, a lot of thought processes are go local. So there is a contraction in that sense. If you see from technological changes, pretty much everybody is aware of like where things are going in terms of technology. Look at from economic sense, like how economies have shaped in last 1 year, and then even previously how they have been changing. Environmental change, like you said, it's not knocking on the door, it's here.
It's
When
already here.
before pandemic, a year before, we had this massive bushfires in Australia,
Yes,
tsunamis, and all those things that you mentioned. So every year, something or the other is happening. That's at a drastic scale, but also the micro level climate changes are significant, which affect not just the day to day living, but also your business, your work, everything that you do. It's your life. Political changes, how particular stance by a government or a politics can affect your business. Tomorrow, someone doesn't like a country, for example, what happened in, say, 2016. Mr. Trump got elected, and now the way he changed policies, it impacted a majority of the IT companies in India. So the political changes do impact in a different way. Legal changes, one law changes and things change. So all these changes, when put together, that creates a massive cacophony, right? And a lot of people do not pay attention to it until it becomes a crisis. So it's not that future of change is coming. It has always been there. It's just that we are visualizing or we are realizing those changes now because they are now massive. They have
yes.
always been there, just that they were under the radar. Now, because they're amplified, we think that, oh, this is how it is going to be. And this is how it was about to be going to be. So, future of work has been there, it's amplified, it's changing, and it will keep changing even forward, moving forward. So, I think the key message here is don't wait for something to happen. Don't wait for a future of work to arrive or something else to arrive. It's here and now. So live in present and see what you can do about it.
Absolutely. So if we look into this particular slide which I'm sharing currently, it exactly reflects what you were saying. There are technological shift, there is generational shift, there is social shift. In fact, yeah, a few days back, I was reading an article that how much the entire social system has changed, especially in work life. Earlier, humans were very used to, since the time they really started into organized work, of having only two generations working together. But now at this stage there are five generations working together in the same environment, and look at the gap of those generations, the technological gap, the knowledge gap, and social gaps, age gap, and that impacts how this entire system or ecosystem of work is going to be there. So let me play a very beautiful video by McKinsey, a very small one, but it really sums up as to what you have been saying till now.
COVID 19 has reshaped the world in ways that will endure long after the pandemic ends. Remote work is here to stay. E commerce is soaring. Automation is accelerating. Our research indicates that the mix of available jobs will change as a result, creating more urgency for training workers for the changes ahead. More than 100 million workers in our focus countries, or 1 in 16, may need to switch occupations by 2030. Job growth will be more heavily concentrated in high-skill jobs, while middle and low-skill jobs decline. The explosion in e-commerce set off a scramble for warehouse workers that is unlikely to stop. Investment in the green economy will increase the need for wind turbine technicians. Demand for photographers may grow to address our increasingly visual ways of communicating. Aging populations in many advanced economies will increase demand for nurses, home health aides, and hearing aid technicians. Teachers and training instructors will also continue to find work over the coming decade. But the forces unleashed by COVID-19 have put other jobs at risk. Business travel is unlikely to recover quickly, and that affects flight attendants, airline mechanics, and baggage handlers. Use of self-checkout stands accelerated during the pandemic, displacing some grocery store clerks. Companies have deployed robotics to process routine paperwork, replacing office workers. We are entering an era of occupational transitions, an era that demands answers to three key questions. What new approaches to training can support the millions of people making these transitions? To protect the social fabric, what benefits, such as sick leave and unemployment insurance, are needed for all workers, including gig workers? Can business and government leaders come together to create solutions, not only for navigating the pandemic, but for navigating the post-pandemic world of work?
Yeah. So first, let me thank Mackenzie for amazing video and really sums up as to what we were talking about. But tell me one thing. I mean, I have been talking to a lot of people, and this fear of changes that is going to happen in the world, and suddenly all the jobs will be lost. So can we talk very specifically of few industries as we were discussing earlier? That what would be the impact in say short term, and then subsequently we'll discuss as to how we need to be prepared for all this. So what do you think would be impact on a manufacturing industry, you know?
All right. So, see, one of the things we constantly forget is we think that any job, any industry is permanent, or once you set it up, like that's how it is going to be all the time. And none of that is ephemeral. None of that is permanent. It's ephemeral, including ourselves. So manufacturing industry is no different. Manufacturing industry, when every manufacturing plant, every company was started, it started with assumption that there is a demand for the product, right? And so everything from supply chain to production to delivery and distribution, everything is laid out accordingly. Now imagine that product is no more required. or customers are shifting, then what happens? So the whole backlash, backwater effect starts to happen on that industry. The same thing happens here. A lot of things people are not wanting anymore. For example, if you have, say, a bottle industry, a plastic bottle industry, plastic water bottle, we know that a lot of people are now being aware of the environmental impact. So less and less people are using plastic water bottles. How that will affect the whole supply chain backwards. So any manufacturer who is manufacturing plastic water bottles, their suppliers, workers in those companies. So that effect will happen, but slowly. Similarly, automobile, for example. There has been a huge market for, say, two wheelers. There was a time, and it's still in some cases, there is a time where people think that a family could have multiple vehicles. So I need to have a bike, my siblings need to have a bike, the whole family needs to own a big SUV or something, and then for each individual, there may be a small car, something like that. If you can afford it, a lot of people will go for it. But that psychology is changing.
Okay. Okay.
And because that psychology is changing, somewhere people are being conservative in terms of expenses. They don't want more vehicles because, again, the petroleum price is changing, the roads getting congested and whatnot.
Right.
That
Okay.
affects again the manufacturing industry because I'll tell you, when for most of the manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers, the secondary industries are huge. Like when I say that I come from Aurangabad, in Aurangabad we have had this Bajaj plant, Bajaj scooters and autos and all that. But there are 300 other small manufacturers who are suppliers to Bajaj.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
just imagine if the requirement for Bajaj autos goes down or scooters
Right.
goes down, how many people will get affected? And that's
Yes.
happening, right? If you are a lot of people now say prefer Uber car over auto. If that is the case, if the difference is too less, probably you will go for a car. Why go for an auto? And so there is a backward backlash effect on it. The same goes with food
Yeah.
industries.
Consumer.
A lot of
Consumer industry.
food manufacturers, packaged food manufacturers, are also being affected the same way, and number of such industries. So I can't put a blanket statement around like which these
I
particular
know.
industries will get affected, but there are a lot of industries which need to think about: is there a change in consumer demand, or is there a change in consumer psychology? And if there is, even if the smallest one, there will be a big change soon.
I agree with you. I always speak this one particular line in every presentation of mine is saying that Darwin's theory has been revised. It's not the survival of the fittest alone, it is the survival of the quickest and the fittest, right? That will ensure that you are relevant in the new world. And besides what you were talking about, advance in manufacturing and consumer industries, there has been a big change how aviation looks itself, the travel industry, the tourism, the financial services, healthcare, media, entertainment, culture. So, some words about these industries as well, Anand.
Yes. So, see, I'll tell you, a couple weeks ago, I was speaking with one of the gentlemen from US, and we were on a podcast. And the conversation went in a direction that how would you like to travel going forward? Like, even if everything comes back to normal, even if. And his statement was quite interesting from a way how people are looking at it. He said that, look, earlier I used to travel a lot for my work because I had to. But now, if I have a choice, and I do have a choice, I would not travel if I can do it other way around.
Hmm.
I would want to travel, like, for example, if I were to go to, say, New Zealand for my work, do I want to be in New Zealand for different interests, for different reasons? If yes, then I would. But if not, then I will think alternatively, right? So instead of travel for business, it's more like travel for pleasure. If I want to travel, if there is a merit in terms of, say, entertainment or a leisure value to it, I will do that, but otherwise I won't. And more people think like that. you will see that there will be less and less demand on travel.
Hmm.
But also that means in order to cope up, travel industries would definitely go towards premium feel and attracting more clients to travel. And that means a lot of products, a lot of things that they use would change. The tactics they use change, the number of things they use would change. So that is going to be a significant impact. A lot of uh, hotels in UAE, I know, they have been promoting, and I have seen a lot of hotels in India also promoting that. That was frowned upon. They said like a vaccine tourism, which is funny. They said that you come and stay with us, like you take your first jab, stay with us. There's a special rate, etc. And then you take your second vaccine, and then you go home. So like 14 days quarantine, you stay with us.
Right.
But that's happened. That has happened in some places. So people will come
Absolutely.
with those freaky ideas. People, some of them will actually make sense, some of them won't, and that's a learning period. But then you
Yeah.
will see some will stay and the rest will go.
You're right, Anand. Actually, we have become so used to of a very stable life, and probably because it comes from a history, right? 50 years
Hmm.
back, 30 years back, I would say even 20 years back, a doctor's son knew that he's going to be a doctor. An engineer's new son probably thought he will be an engineer. Father was an army officer, and
Hmm.
whether I liked it, wanted it, or didn't, but I was pushed to join the army, and eventually I did well. So that is how the life used to be, but suddenly it has changed dramatically. People don't even know what jobs would be existing now and what kind of jobs they would be having with this particular industry. So I don't say that this is a shift, it's a evolution process, but the evolution speed has increased considerably. What took hundreds of years to change is now happening every 5 years. Your views on this?
See, I don't think that things are changing rapidly now. They have been changing constantly. Now, the
Yeah.
issue with constant change, it piles up, right? And we don't realize that change in the first instance, but then as those things start to pile up, then we realize, oh, this is massive. But it's not massive now, it has been piling up for a long time. So if people have been paying attention, they would say, well, it's not big deal for me. Those who have been paying attention, those who have been into that luxury mode or comfort zone where they say, now I'm set and I'm not changing anymore. For them, it's a shock. And that is what we have seen has happened. In terms of the jobs and all those things, so see, a lot of people come from a mindset that I will do something and that would be my career for the rest of my life. I don't think that is the tendency now. A lot of people have realized, even from even teenagers understand this is not the case. They don't even want to do that. Forget about
Exactly.
is it possible or not. They don't even want to do that in the first place.
Right. Right.
It's boring for
Absolutely.
them, and it's boring for most of us. It's just that we don't vocalize it, but that's the case.
So I totally agree and endorse what you're saying, Anand, because I was also talking to a lot of people that who have been graduates from great IITs and IIMs and things like that. And I was looking into the relevance of that knowledge. Probably, yes, it does create some foundational work, but will it remain relevant? Sometimes people take, textile as one of their subjects, or, they graduate in textile or chemical engineering or things like that, but eventually get into banking, right? So I won't say that that's wrong, but fact of the matter is they have the dexterity and the agility to move from one area of work to another work, right? I was a supply chain professional for last approximately 30 odd years, and I probably started thinking it's in my DNA. And every time I used to look at my CV, it looked like my astrologer's sheet of paper to say I am the only person, or I am the supply chain guy, right? Eventually, I had to start looking at other areas of work, and that is the time I realized that probably I am. equally good, if not better, than being a supply chain professional. So I would like your views on new way of working, that is gigs, multiple areas of work, remote working, and starting your own entrepreneurship, right? So you're having your
Hmm.
own startups, and how do you see in the current or new evolving word, that should be the right word to ask.
Right. See, there are multiple forces that are impacting this kind of thinking. Okay, several years ago, several decades ago, say for my parents' lifetime and previous generations, the priority has been making a living. That's a priority for many of us. That's not the point. But in order to meet that priority, in order to meet that requirement, they had to do a lot of work. That means they couldn't think of anything else. They had only work as the primary option in their life. Now that most of the families are, say, stable, so to speak, now they are thinking beyond that. Now they're thinking, oh, why am I doing this? Or why should I do certain thing? Just because now my bread and butter is being taken care of. So I have a liberty to think beyond it, right? That's one angle to it. The second angle to it is also most people are now realizing that it's not what you do defines, right? It's not your work defines your life. As long as you know why you are doing something and you have a larger picture in your mind, you will do things differently. Which means for a lot of professionals, they're looking for a second alternative. Not that they're leaving the job per se, they are looking at, say, side hustle. They're trying to do more than one thing because that keeps them happy. So they do one thing for, say, profession to earn money and all that. They do other things because it keeps them happy. There are a lot of people who are taking a plunge and saying, well, I would try out all in and be an entrepreneur. And as you would see now, connect that with the automation, connect that with AI, connect that with number of technological changes. Now we see that as technology is taking care of majority of the work, you don't need many people. So what those many people are going to do now? So while there is a push from tech side, so reducing number of people, there is also mindset side which is pushing people in that direction where you want to start something on your own, and this would be the right time. I mean, to start something, there is never a wrong time. Today is always the right time, right? So
Right.
I think if something is on your mind, if someone is thinking that I should try something, go for it. If you're wanting to try your hand at any small business, any gig, any new work that you have been conceiving for that, don't sit on it. Don't wait for another slap to come in the form of COVID or any other fancy thing. Just get on, do it.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, tell me one thing. I mean, the kind of changes which is coming now, or they're already existing in many industries. What would be your, advice to young professionals who are either in the advanced stage of finishing their studies and their learnings, and also those who are at the initial stage of their career? So, what would be your advice to them? How do they survive? How do they thrive in this changing environment?
Well, I don't think there is a survival issue per se, at least for none of us in that sense. For youngsters, if and the fresh people who are saying looking forward to start their career, if you have been thinking that what comes after studies is a formal work or a job, that thinking probably needs to change, and that needs to change like today. If you have been thinking that I will finish my job, then I'll finish my studies, then I'll get a job, and then this happens, then that happens, that cycle is not guaranteed. It was never guaranteed so much, but now it's absolutely not guaranteed. So that means you might want to start thinking alternatives. Imagine the worst, like if you have been thinking I will depend on the job, and imagine if you don't get a job, not in 6 months, not in a year. If that somehow doesn't become an option for you, what will you do? And you don't want to wait
Right.
until that happens. You want to start thinking now, right? What is that you would take? What action you would take? Would you start a business? Then yes, what business would you start? What preparation you need to do? Because a lot of things you sometimes you might want to start business, but the preparation required could be 6 months prior to that, and you don't have that time. So now, if you think early, you will have that time to prepare for it, to acquire new skills, if that is the case, to acquire new acquaintances, to build new
Network.
networks, and all those things. You do that,
Right.
right? So all the freshers, all the people who are just starting their career or thinking about starting their career, think for alternatives and always keep alternatives on your mind. Don't think one thing as a sacrosanct and move with it.
I
Remember, there's
totally
always, you need to have multiple options available.
right. Tell me one thing. I mean, I've been talking to, and I do teach in certain B schools and all as a visiting faculty. Uh, One point which I have always understood, and I've always been talking to the faculties as to, are our own educational institutes, responsible for not allowing our, professionals to develop that agility of understanding. We have been created straight jacketed, robos, in, if I can say that, right? Because we say, okay, you are a HR person, you are an operations person, you are a sales person, and that person all through his life only considers, or we say, okay, you are from telecom industry, you are from educational industry, you are from travel industry, and we just can't think beyond that. What is your take? How are our educational institutes actually creating this problem in place of helping people to have a much wider thought process?
I think we put a lot of onus and we expect too much from educational institutions because, look, how do you live your life is not their prerogative. How you make money to live your life, or what work do you do to keep yourself happy or keep yourself functional, is not. I don't see them to be the responsible people to do that. I see them more so from, say, uh, skills imparting perspective, right? If you're thinking of, say, mindset development and thought process and all that, that happens all in primitive states, in primary schools and all that, where people set some ground rules or imbibe some of those, unwritten things in your head, that this is how society works, this is how your culture and things around you work. You walk on left side, or you stop at red signal, etc. Even before you know, some of them are rules and some of them are just thumb rules. But as you move, say, post teen age, if you're going in HSC, college, post degree, etc., I don't think they're responsible in terms of telling you how to behave, how to do things. They will tell you. It's more like you go to them that, look, I want to do something in engineering, so teach me how engineering works, or give me skills on engineering, and they will do that. Anything else expecting from them is probably too much, right? So take that ownership on you.
Exactly.
That's my advice all the time, that take that ownership on you as to, do you want to do something? And if you look at the educational institutions from that perspective, that they are only here to give me what I want.
Right.
If they give me, I will learn and I will move on, and then I'll do whatever I want to do with that learning.
Right.
Don't expect them to tell you what to do with that learning. They will
So
only
let
teach
me
you, and you move on.
let me use the analogy of supply chain. That's what my DNA says. I'm a supply chain person, and it's called pull and push system. So the education till your grade 12, that is your schooling, is the push system. So they push, push, and push, or whether it's mathematics or it's science or it's history or geography for that matter. And they ask you to do homework. There are tasks which you have to complete, and then you get the grades. The teachers themselves are involved in your grades, so they get emotionally involved, they push you to get better grades. But once you move out of the school, It, you don't have to, it is not a push system anymore, it's a pull system. What do you want to do? And that is where our youngsters should understand that you need to start pulling. There is no end to knowledge availability now. You can do the best course for free from Oxford if you want, right, or from Cambridge or from MIT. But fact of the matter is, you need to do that. In an art of working, we tell people, create your Google map for your career. Understand where you are and understand where you want to go, and then you plan your career benchmarks and say, this is what I need to do. And that is a continuous evolving process. You can't be sitting at one point of time and saying, I have achieved. There's nothing called achievement, it's a journey. And at every stage, to be relevant, you have to keep learning. So learning is now living, right? So now this was for
Absolutely.
those, yeah, so this was for those youngsters who are about to join or have recently joined, to get these great words of wisdom from Anand. But what about career professionals who think they are in the best of the industries? They have reached, done IITs, IIMs, Kellogg's, MITs, and all. And now, henceforth, for next 15, 20 years, they will be earning. And fine day, go to honeymoon or, some holidays or to Honolulu or Hawaii or something like that. Is that the thing?
I'll tell you what happened. I think this is from 2017,
Right.
and I was consulting with one company, and I had a meeting with one of the gentlemen who was about to give me some information on the process. So we were doing the process mapping, and that person has been working with that company for about 10 years, right? And he was quite comfortable, knowledgeable, everything, like couldn't have gone anything wrong. The day on my meeting, he doesn't appear, he doesn't show up. So I go on, ask his colleagues, like, what happened? They say, oh, there has been a list of people who have been retrenched. So company has been cutting down some numbers, and he's part of the list. So people have, HR guys have made him a call that if he wants to kind of sort out his things, doesn't want to come, that's fine. So I waited for a couple of days, and a couple of days later, he comes cleaning his desk, and you could see the kind of surprise he had in his eyes, and kind of, I don't know how you would describe that feeling, that somewhere he was thinking that, well, I didn't think this would happen to me, and it happened. My point is, it could happen to anyone.
Right.
Like, and which is why we said earlier that if you think that the job is the permanent thing, it is not. And that means you need to treat it that way.
Right.
And the moment your thinking shifts that job is not the permanent thing, that means you can do other things. You are not bound to do that. You're not a bonded labor. You could do other things. That opens up lots of avenues. If you have been thinking that I want to do something, I want to try this, go try it. Nobody's stopping you, right? And again, so time is now. You don't want to regret it afterwards, saying that, oh, I should have tried. That's too late. So all these career professionals, well, if you're happy doing your job, fantastic, keep going. I'm not saying leave your job and do something else immediately. I'm just thinking that keep an open mind, at least underscore this thinking that it's not permanent. Nothing is permanent, including job.
Very well said. Very well said, Anand. I totally endorse as to what you are saying. There's nothing permanent, and that is where the evolution comes in. We take so many things in our life for granted, right? I learned my own lessons, and coming from the army and having three transitions from army to the corporate to as an entrepreneur. At every stage, I had to go back to the start of the ladder and learn. And that is what you need to do in future, that you have to keep learning and evaluating yourself over a period of time. So I would request, there are few questions which have come, but I would request anyone who wants to ask question, you will never get this great opportunity. I'm sure. But if you directly connect with Anand Tamboli, he will always support you. He has amazing programs which he runs on various this thing. You can go to his website, anandtamboli.com, and there you can have a look at his. Is that the right website, Anand?
Sorry?
Your website?
Yes. So what I would recommend that, in fact, I'm running a program just in 10 days time, another 10 days on 20th of August. So the program is a little workshop that we are running on is your business future proof?
Uh-huh.
So if anybody
Got it.
wants to kind of test it out, so we are going to run a little hands-on exercise, a couple of questions, not couple of, a lot of questions to assess where does your business stand? Is it future proof? So if anybody is interested to join this, go on to this link, anantamboli.com/events. You will find something on 20th of August. You can register. I'll be happy to see you there.
Yeah, there's one question which has come from Jatin Khurana, and he says, "How do we start a new startup? What are the legalities?" Jatin, you can directly contact because it pertains to Indian, system of registration of companies, and I can give you certain leads. You can talk to the consultants directly, and they can guide you as to how to, start your startup. So let me, Anand, once again use this small PPT to sum up as to what you have been saying till now, that firstly technology is everywhere, and these are the seven disruptors which we are watching in our time. There is tsunami of data, there is change in nature of career. Earlier your whatever skills you had could survive you for 5 to 10 years, but now it's not beyond 2 to 2.5 years. There's AI and cognitive computing, robotics, and they are becoming highly affordable. Explosion of contingent of work and jobs vulnerable to automation. So that's what we were discussing, that the jobs are vulnerable and you need to be prepared. See, you understand then when your father or a trainer taught you how to drive, and that is the time they used to have dual control, or at least they had a hand on the handbrake, or some way they could tell you to slow down this thing. The car is in your control now. So it is you who has to decide which road you're going to take, which path you're going to take, how fast you need to drive, what kind of car do you want to have for that matter. So you are in charge of your career, and it's high time you realize this. Most of the time we sit with our friends and people or peers. That's fine. I'm not saying that's not good. But fact of the matter is, somewhere you need to start developing understanding. आपको पता होना चाहिए कि आपको करना क्या है और कैसे करना है। उसकी कोई ज्यादा डिफिकल्टी नहीं है, उसके लिए बहुत सारे लोग हैं, मैं हूँ। You can connect with Anand, you can go to Google and find people who really mentor, because this is the age of information, this is the age of networking. Find your own tribe, you find people from your tribe. I want to do this, find who else is doing this, and then start working towards this. So let me look into I have another small video, Anand, before we can start summing up this program, and let me
Sure.
play that for everyone.
Everyone's talking about the future of work, and a lot of what they're saying is disturbing. Robots are taking over all manual labor. AI will replace all kinds of white-collar jobs, and humans will be contingent labor, scavenging for the limited work remaining. Yeah, pretty alarming. At Deloitte, we don't see things that way. The future of work is this. That's right, people. People empowered to do what we do best. Thinking creatively, using our emotional intelligence, making value judgments, communicating, teaching, sharing wisdom. Our human capital teams are plugged into worldwide developments and trends, and we see 5 clear realities we can all act upon right now. Reality 1. Everything is on the table. 57% of jobs globally are highly vulnerable to automation. Work, workers, workplaces, they're all going to change dramatically within the next 7 years. Why now? Because a number of factors have brought us to a tipping point. The world of work would change as radically as the world of personal communication began changing 10 years ago. Do you remember questions like these? So change is coming, and to make the most of it, we need to open our minds. Reality 2. Technology learns faster than we can. Amazon uses robots to select, stack, package, and ship items with almost no human intervention. We already know technology learns far faster than we can, but it's also true that it has changed our personal lives more than the way we work. That's good news, because as technology changes the world of work, we'll already be familiar with many of its advances. Reality 3. The new workforce will be highly diverse. 70% of business leaders believe they need a new mix of talent and skills in the future. We've been writing about the open talent economy for years. Well, today, it's here. Traditional employees will increasingly be joined by contractors, freelancers, and crowdsourced talent, as well as robots and AI applications. Office parties will never be the same again. Reality 4. Work to learn, not learn to work. The average half-life of a learned business competency has dropped from 30 years in 1984 to 5 years in 2014, and is still dropping. As routine work is automated, we'll be able to focus more on truly human skills. We'll have careers built around learning instead of careers built around jobs. Reality 5. Public policy needs to catch up. By 2020, more than 75% of the S&P 500 will be companies that we have not heard of yet. All this change will happen while the government still struggles to come to grips with it. But we can't wait for them. It will be up to our leaders in business and society to help drive public policy and bring everyone along. With these 5 new realities in mind, Deloitte is working with organizations around the world to help them recalibrate talent, technology, and workplaces. So while everything will change, we have the framework that can help you understand how to make it work best for you. Above all, we know what the future of work is really all about. Us. So let's get to work.
So, firstly, let me thank Deloitte. Amazing video. It sums up what we have been discussing for so much. But I would take one great opportunity. We just the video also discussed about contract working and how you can reach out to them and just take their services. And I did that this morning, and I would love to share this. This is my dream that one day on Times Square I should be visible, right? So, Anand, just for fun sake, just watch this. So Anand, I don't know who this guy was. So there's one website called Fiverr. I went there. I just saw his, what he does, how much does he charge, and then few, just a few chats on discussion. I shared my logo and file and pictures, and then he gave me some some mock-ups, and I said, okay, you can change this, and within say 24 hours, I have this. I don't know which country, which location, which person, and I probably may not require his services anytime more. I may probably recommend him for to someone else, but this is what is going to be now. I don't need to find someone who knows me or someone knows someone. You can find anyone. You just look into the work he has been doing. He may give you some example on what he has done till now and pick and choose. So look at the amount of opportunities globally you're going to be open to.
So I might add to this, Atul, what you just said. If you so in a way things are being global and local at the same time. The only difference is what are you looking for. If you're looking for a transaction, the world is open, right? Like you said,
Yeah.
I don't know the person, I just did sent him something, you got it, you don't know whether you will hire that person again or not. So it's like literally transactional in nature. If that is the case, you can do that at global scale. But if you, on the other hand, if you're looking at something long term, long lasting, relational, and all those things, trust. You would want to see that person. You would want to understand, know that person very well. So that's a very different level of engagement,
Right.
right? So one is
Yes.
transactional, other is relational.
Right.
Both have their own time and place.
Right.
The only thing is now you will see that more and more, right?
Yes.
The only recommendation and advice at this point in time I would want to give is for people who are watching this is do not outsource your thinking to someone else. Think for
Very
yourself.
well said. Yeah.
Just because
Amazing.
somebody is saying something uh, that may not be true, have your own filter, have your own lenses, and see if it makes sense to you.
Very well said. Before we come to our last part of the program where we will talk about core and soft skills required, there's one question Sandeep Pandey wants to ask, and he says, "Sir, if what if sometimes we got to know that our startup has already been in the market, and how does it affect our business?" You can give your answer, Anand, but I will say when Ola came, Uber existed, right? When Pepsi came, Coca-Cola existed. So I don't think that should worry you. But Anand, your views on this?
So see, even if somebody is copying something, I would say there is always a customer for your business or your product, right? It doesn't matter what business is yours. It doesn't matter what uh, whether it already exists or not. There is always someone who is willing to buy or pay for your service. Just that our our adamancy, our fixation is that no, I want that customer to buy my service or my product. That may not happen, but if you look carefully, you will find somebody else who is willing to do that. So as long as you keep searching that product market fit, as some people would call it, or market product fit, y- you will find there are customers for your product also, for your service also. You just have to look somewhere else if you're not finding answers where you're looking for.
So tell me one thing. I mean, what are the areas or probably skills I would look into it as soft or core skills that you think that's a very general nature I'm talking about. Would be one of those beneficial things to acquire or to have if you want to survive or thrive and grow and be successful.
I think in general, if you were to acquire some of those skills or develop some of those skills rather than acquiring, I think it's more important to develop those skills all by yourself. One is, I said, thinking for yourself. Now thinking for yourself doesn't mean just you do the bull work all the time. If there is information available, you don't have to recreate the wheel. I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is, can you make meaning out of that? Internet is full of information, some garbage, some useful, some really gold. What you need to learn is how do you crisscross that information and then be able to detect that this is garbage and this is gold. Can you differentiate that? Learn that skill, because you will see more garbage coming up in on internet. As the technology becomes easier, more people will dump their things. Some will be good, some will not be. So that is number one, being able to discern and distinguish between useful and not useful. The
Right.
second thing, and it's less of a skill, more of a mindset and ability, is to, once you have that information, what do you do with that? Right? You got to take action. You got to do something with it. If you're just sitting on that pile of information, that's going to be pointless. So you have to take action. You have to act on it, and that is an inertia for a lot of people. Oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? So taking action is not a skill. It's just the mindset. It's just a practice. You have to practice to take action and keep doing that. Once you build that courage to take action, things move. And the third one would be resourcefulness. Highly recommended. We know a lot of people do come from restricted backgrounds. You don't have access to tools or maybe things that you need. But if you are, say, uh, so goal oriented, you say that, look, I want to do this. I have this information, but I don't have resources. You have to be resourceful to figure the way out. And that means you have to constantly keep looking around as to how can I use this thing for something else so that I can fulfill my ambition. Right? So being resourceful is something we have to be very, very proactive in practicing. Not depending on resources is the key skill.
Yeah, so let me add just one more, taking that liberty is network. And that is where I have never met Anand Damboli in person. I met him on I think a web program. We connected for last 1.5 years. I must also compliment Anand Damboli for one small thing which he's done, and that has become very big for me and making me digitally aware. So I attended one of his programs on OBS, and I evolved from there, and I became slightly more digital savvy, if I could use that word, to start using various formats and using, I mean, this entire program, the way we are currently presenting itself comes from that confidence. I used to require three people to do it. Last year it is one person, three laptops around me, and I can successfully juggle from one particular say digital device to another one. So Anand, I just have tried to bring think about all these core competencies that is required at leadership level, and we have this small little thing, a slide which says what all things are needed in this emerging, changes. One is innovative thinking, technology knowledge is very important, multi-generational organizational skill. As we discussed, there are five generation of people working together now. There are analytical skill, another very very important, because there's so much of data being generated. Entrepreneurial mindset, as Anand was saying, that you should be having that mindset to start something on your own. IT competency, I don't think this is a skill required now, it has to be inborn. Marketing intelligence, absolutely yes. Financial expertise, which we never used to teach our children in the school, is a must now. Regulatory expertise and other leadership qualities or leadership competencies which you require to do and learn and be there. So these were few of the things which I could put together and understand that how these competencies are going to impact us. Anand, it has been amazing. We are coming to a close of our amazing interaction from Sydney live. What time is it out there?
Now it's 4 o'clock.
Oh, so we have eaten into your Sunday afternoon, but I'm sure, and my request to everyone who is watching now or would be watching these recordings in various parts, whether it's on Facebook Live currently, on YouTube Live, and LinkedIn Live, is to connect to Anand Tamboli onto any of these platforms or directly onto his LinkedIn profile and take this advantage of networking with him. When you connect with Anand Damboli, you connect with his network as well. Right, Anand? And I would leave you now because it's time for you. What is your favorite, wine or the beer?
I don't drink.
Ah, Anand. That's fine, but I
It
thought
was
probably you
coffee,
would
right?
remember.
It was coffee with founders.
Found. No, so we are ending the program. So I'm looking at the program to end, and you would jump to your beer or something. But that's perfectly fine. Anand, this is the cup which we give to everyone who comes on the program, and it's a nice coffee mug from Art of Working. Uh, Anytime, whenever you are in India, we will fill it up and give it to you as well.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Anand, for joining us from Sydney live. And it's amazing to have this great insight on future of work. And I'm sure everyone who is watching this program or watch it later would take this advantage and connect with you and try to be much more aware and be successful, right? So coming on to Art of Working really thanks you for joining on this Sunday, 8th of August. And our aim is to bring such wonderful personalities, people who have excelled in their career, people who have future mindset, who are great thought leaders. Aim is firstly to give you that great insight into what is happening around us. Secondly, make you more competent professional. Third is to improve on your network. That is what is the aim of Coffee with Founders. It's been amazing this Sunday, and we would look forward for many such association in coming Sundays throughout the year. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a great Sunday. Enjoy life.